So this is the big story tonight. Is a war breaking out over the Himalayas? Will the Indian troops soon have to march to the battlefield? Now remember, the reason why we are saying these are the disturbing developments that have been taking place along the line of actual control. And also, once you hear what the Chinese President Xi Jinping has in fact just said, he's asked China to prepare for the very worst case scenario. Let me in fact read out this statement that has been made by Xi Jinping. He said, and I quote him here, "We must adhere to the bottom line thinking and the worst case scenario thinking and get ready to undergo the major tests of high winds and also rough waves and even perilous and stormy seas." Now, this was Xi Jinping's message to the Chinese Communist Party's National Security Commission. Now, this is a body that deals with national security strategy. Now, the question is, was Xi Jinping sounding the war bugle? Now, is the war cry meant to echo in the Himalayas, or is it meant to reach the shores of the Taiwan Strait? Because at about the time Xi Jinping in fact made this statement, a video was released showing off China's new underwater kamikaze drone. Now, this kamikaze drone is called WION. And the fact that it can be launched underwater is proof that China is in fact preparing for an amphibious water conflict, which experts believe will be the nature of China's war with Taiwan. But the question is this: how likely is China to actually go to war over Taiwan? Beijing clearly has got a dream timeline for returning Taiwan to the People's Republic of China. Xi Jinping has even said that China will use all means necessary towards this end, and using force is an option that it wants to exercise. The People's Liberation Army has also been rehearsing the invasion of Taiwan, but despite the loud and the belligerent threats and Western timelines on when China could actually unleash its assault on Taiwan, a real conflict in the Taiwan Strait may not come anytime soon, and we'll tell you why. The first, it will expose China to the risk of coming face to face with the American armed forces in the Taiwan Strait. Remember, US warships routinely sail through the Taiwan Strait, and on the 17th of April, for example, the USS Himalayas conducted one of those quote-unquote routine transits through the Taiwan Strait. Secondly, Xi Jinping may not want to be seen as the leader who goes to war with fellow Chinese people. Remember, the Taiwanese, although they want to see themselves as an independent nation, the Chinese people consider them to be just Chinese. And then there's also this: there may not even be a need for war with Taiwan for China. Now, what China wants is to reunify what it calls as a renegade province, which in all likelihood is not happening at this moment. But what can happen, though, are better ties between China and Taiwan, and even to the extent of China in fact wielding a greater amount of influence in Taipei. And this could happen by as early as January 2024, when Taiwan goes to polls to elect its next president. The incumbent President Tsai Ing-wen and also her party, the DPP, also known as the Democratic Progressive Party, rejected the prospect of Chinese unification. But the opposition party, the Kuomintang, wants more friendlier ties with China, and this could of course make all the difference. Now, as recently as February, the Kuomintang leader Andrew Tsai had gone on a 9-day visit to China, and also what's more, this was of course his second visit in 12 months. The Kuomintang actually hopes that these visits will help the party return to power early next year by showcasing that under its leadership, Taiwan can have a working relation with China. Now, some opposition leaders are asking to turn the Kinmen Islands into a demilitarized zone. So let's show you where the Kinmen Islands are. Now, this of course is a group of frontline islands. They're extremely close to mainland China. They're just about 2.5 miles away from the Chinese mainland. Now, these islands were heavily shelled during the two Taiwan Strait conflicts till about 1979. And now, the Kinmen Islands want to avoid a repeat of history. For some members of the Kinmen County Council are proposing that this archipelago should be turned into some kind of a demilitarized zone. They're also proposing for a bridge to be built connecting the Kinmen Island to China. Now, Xi Jinping, of course, is well aware of all of this, and he gets the fruitlessness of going to war with Taiwan. So does that mean that his recent comments were aimed at India? Diplomatic tensions are already running high between New Delhi and Beijing. Now, you must have read reports of the Indian journalists being denied Chinese visas. China claims that it started it by cutting short the visa of the Chinese journalists. Now, here's, of course, the bigger question. Is Xi looking to escalate tensions? And if he's trying to do so, then why would he want to escalate tensions? His comments on preparing for the worst are in fact counterproductive to his ambition of playing a larger global role. They contradict his diplomatic victories in West Asia. So why is Xi Jinping doing what he's doing? Now, we think that he's actually trying to distract the attention of the Chinese population from an almost insurmountable crisis that China faces. Now, Xi Jinping is trying to paint India as the enemy so that the Chinese do not spot the real enemy at home. What we are talking about is the Chinese economy. It's in a complete mess. The Chinese banks are on the verge of collapsing. There are no jobs in the Chinese market. 20%, you must hear it again, 20% of the Chinese youth at this moment are sitting at home. They are unemployed and they can't get jobs. To top that, there are 11.6 million young Chinese graduates who are entering into the job market this year. How do you provide them with jobs and how do you feed them? And if you can't give them jobs, then what do you do? The country has got two things to offer them. So as these young graduates enter into the job market, what stares them is unemployment. And secondly, they could be underemployed. Now, even those returning with fancy degrees from foreign universities back to China are being forced to work menial jobs. There's also growing frustration amongst the Chinese youth. They're extremely angry and Xi Jinping is trying to distract them from their reality. So he is pointing across the border over the Himalayas and he's trying to trigger a war with India. He's taking pages from the old playbook. When things aren't going well at home, then why not march to the battlefield? The ties between India and China have gone south since the 2020 Ladakh standoff, and in many ways, the Galwan clash was the final nail in the coffin. Ever since then, both sides have in fact deployed tens of thousands of troops along the border. And it is not going well with China that United States and India are looking to upgrade their strategic partnership. There are talks of a big defense technology deal that could be announced later this month, and we'll tell you what, brace yourself for the worst, because the violent messaging from China is likely to get more strident as the countdown, of course, begins for the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's state visit to the United States, something that will keep you on top of from Ground Zero on Gravitas. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.